Here's a question for you. How many times have you packed up your gear, moved 50 yards down the ice, only to see another guy walk up, drop a line in your old hole, and pull out a monster walleye 2 minutes later? It's one of the most frustrating things in fishing, right? We've all been told the same thing for years. If a hole doesn't produce in 15 minutes, it's dead. Move on. Well, today I'm going to tell you that this piece of advice might be the biggest lie in ice fishing. We're going to talk about what really happens down there after you leave, and why the biggest, smartest fish might be showing up at minute 16, just as your back is turned. Stay with me, because what I'm about to share could completely change how you approach your time on the ice and put a true giant on the end of your line. So, let me ask you this before we start. Do you believe a hole can go from completely dead to red hot in a matter of seconds? Let me know in the comments. This whole idea of the 15-minute rule comes from a place of logic, I get it. Ice fishing can be a grind. You're out there in the cold and you want to be proactive. You want to cover water, or in this case, cover ice. The belief is that if there are active fish in the area, they'll hit your lure pretty quickly. And for small aggressive perch or bluegill, that can be true. So for decades, the strategy has been to drill, drop, jig for a few minutes. And if the flasher is blank and the rod tip isn't bouncing, you pull up and start walking. It's a numbers game, or so we're told. Drill enough holes and you'll eventually drop your lure on a fish's head. But this strategy is built on a huge assumption that all fish are either already there and aggressive, or they're not there at all. It completely ignores the behavior of larger, more cautious predators and the natural rhythm of the underwater world. It's a habit, a tradition passed down, but it's a habit that's costing you fish. Let's start with what happens the moment you drill a hole. The noise and vibration from that auger is like a bomb going off underwater. It's loud, it's unnatural, and it sends shockwaves through the entire area. Any fish that was nearby, especially a wary old walleye or a spooky lake trout, isn't going to rush in to investigate. Its first instinct is to either bolt or hunker down and wait for the threat to pass. Think about it from their perspective. A massive roaring monster just tore a hole in their ceiling. Your first 10 or 15 minutes at that hole are often spent just waiting for the immediate area to recover from the chaos you just created. The smaller, dumber fish might come back quickly, but the veterans, the ones you're really after, are sitting back, watching and waiting. Now let's talk about the concept of a settling period. After the initial shock of the auger, there's a period where the underwater environment needs to return to normal. The sediment you kicked up needs to settle. The vibrations need to dissipate. This is a critical window of time. Most anglers are jigging aggressively right away, trying to attract a fish. But you might be better off with a more subtle approach for the first 5 minutes. Let the area calm down. Imagine you're a big pike. You felt the vibration. You saw the light change. You're not charging in. You're going to sit in that weed bed 20 feet away and just observe. You're waiting to see if that disturbance is a threat or an opportunity. Your impatience in those first few minutes could be signaling danger to the very fish you want to attract. Here's where it gets interesting. Predators don't just sit in one spot all day waiting for a meal to fall on their head. They cruise. Walleyes, especially, are known for patrolling specific routes. Weed lines, drop-offs, structure. They have a beat, like a cop walking the block. They might only pass through a specific spot every 20, 30, or even 60 minutes. So you could drill a hole in the middle of a fish superhighway, but if you're only there for 15 minutes, you're just playing the lottery. You might be leaving 5 minutes before the afternoon rush hour begins. The fish aren't absent, you're just out of sync with their schedule. Patience isn't about waiting for a fish to exist, it's about waiting for its scheduled arrival. Think about the food chain. What brings a predator in? Baitfish. And what do baitfish do after you drill a hole? At first, they scatter just like everything else. But then, something interesting happens. Your jig, pulsing and fluttering down there, looks like a dying minnow. It attracts small, curious perch or shiners. They come in to investigate. They create movement and vibration. This is the dinner bell for the big boys. But this process takes time. It can take 10 or 15 minutes for a small school of bait to assemble around your lure. And only then does a cruising predator, sensing this activity from a distance, decide to alter its course and come in for a look. You're not just fishing, you're creating a temporary ecosystem. If you leave at minute 15, you're packing up just as the buffet is about to open. Let's debunk a common myth about flashers and sonars. We stare at those screens, and if we don't see red lines, we assume there are no fish. But your flasher only shows you a narrow cone directly beneath you. A monster pike could be sitting 10 feet to your left, completely invisible to your electronics, just watching your lure. It's waiting for the right moment. It's waiting for your jig to do something that triggers its predatory instinct. So many anglers are slaves to their electronics. They see a blank screen and think it means a dead zone. But a blank screen doesn't mean no fish. It just means no fish directly under you right now. The biggest fish are often the ones that hang on the edges, and you need to give them time to commit. This brings us to the psychology of the angler. We are by nature impatient. The cold seeps in, the wind picks up, and our mind starts to wander. We start to believe the grass is greener over there by that point or in that deeper water. This is what I call the curse of the next hole. We're so convinced that the next hole will be the one that we don't give our current hole a fair chance. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You believe the hole is dead, so you leave. And because you left, you never find out if it was about to come alive. True fishing discipline isn't about drilling 100 holes. It's about having the confidence to sit on a high percentage spot and wait for the fish to come to you. Let's talk about a real-life example. I was out on a lake known for big walleyes. I marked a subtle point on the map, drilled my holes, and sat. For 25 minutes, my flasher was a ghost town, not a single blip. My buddy, fishing 100 yards away, was already on his 5th hole. He was texting me, "Anything yet? This place is dead." I was tempted to move, but I knew the spot was good. At minute 26, a faint line appeared at the bottom. It rose slowly. I paused my jig. The line turned a thick, angry red. I set the hook, and a few minutes later, a 28-inch walleye was on the ice. That fish wasn't there for the first 25 minutes. It cruised in. My buddy never even saw a fish that day because he never stopped moving. Now, consider the opposite scenario, one we've all lived through. You're fishing a community spot. You find an open area and start fishing. Nothing for 15 minutes. You see a guy a little ways off pull in a decent fish, so you pack up and decide to move closer to him. You get over there, drill a new hole, and the bite has already died. Meanwhile, someone else sees your abandoned hole, wanders over, and within minutes they're hooked up. You weren't in a bad spot. You were just on the leading edge of a feeding window. You did the hard work of waiting for things to calm down, and someone else reaped the reward of your impatience. Let's change our definition of waiting. Patience isn't just sitting there staring at the motionless rod tip. Active waiting is a strategy. During that 30-minute window, you should be experimenting. For the first 10 minutes, use subtle movements to let things settle. For the next 10, try more aggressive reps to call fish in from a distance. In the final 10 minutes, switch lures. Go from a noisy rattlespoon to a silent tungsten jig. Change your bait from a whole minnow to just a minnow head. Waiting doesn't mean being passive. It means using the time at one hole to exhaust all the possibilities before you decide to move on. Most people don't work a hole, they just visit it. Another crucial factor is the current. Even on a lake that seems perfectly still, there is almost always a subtle underwater current, especially on larger bodies of water. This current acts as a conveyor belt for scent. When you drop a baited hook down there, it creates a scent trail. It takes time for that scent to travel and for fish to follow it back to its source. 15 minutes might not be long enough for a fish that's 50 feet down current to even know you're there. By staying put, you're giving your scent plume time to do its job and draw fish in from all around you, not just from directly underneath. Let's consider the personality of a trophy fish. A 10-pound walleye or a 40-inch pike didn't get that big by being stupid and reckless. They are survivors. They are cautious. They've seen every lure and dodged dozens of hooks in their lifetime. They are not going to be the first ones to rush into a freshly drilled hole. They will often let smaller, more aggressive fish test the waters. They'll watch from a distance. Is that flashing spoon a real meal or is it a trap? They wait. They observe. And only when they feel confident that it's safe do they move in. Your impatience is a filter. It filters out the small, dumb fish that bite right away and leaves the cautious giants for the angler who is willing to wait them out. The 16th minute is a metaphor, of course. It could be minute 20 or minute 40. The point is that there is a tipping point at every fishing spot, a point where the area has recovered from your arrival, where bait has been attracted, and where cruising predators have had time to arrive. Your job as an angler is to figure out the general rhythm of the lake you're on. On some high-pressure lakes, that settling time might be longer. On a remote backwoods lake, it might be shorter. But it is never zero. The 15-minute rule treats all lakes and all fish as the same, and that's a fundamental flaw in the logic. Think about how light penetration changes. When you first drill a hole, you're creating a sudden bright shaft of light in a dark world. This can be jarring to fish, but as you sit there, as snow blows over the hole, as the sun moves across the sky, the lighting conditions under your hole are constantly changing. Sometimes, a subtle shift in the light is all it takes to trigger a bite. A predator might use that new shadow line to ambush your lure. By staying put, you allow the natural progression of the day to work in your favor, presenting your lure under various lighting conditions without ever moving. What about the pressure from other anglers? If you're on a busy lake, fish get conditioned to the sound of augers. They associate that sound with danger. They might go into a negative or neutral feeding mood for a period after hearing drilling. But after 15 or 20 minutes of relative quiet around your specific hole, they may relax and resume feeding. The guy who is constantly drilling and moving is keeping the fish in a state of high alert. The guy who sits quietly and waits is allowing the fish in his area to calm down and become catchable again. In this case, doing less is actually doing more. Here's a practical challenge for you. The next time you go out, pick one spot that you know should hold fish based on your map or past experience. Commit to fishing that single hole for 1 full hour, not 59 minutes, 1 hour. Bring a thermos of coffee, get comfortable, and just fish that one spot. Cycle through 4 different lures. Vary your jigging cadence. Pay attention to every single thing your electronics tell you. I am willing to bet that you will learn more from that 1 hour in one spot than you would from drilling 20 holes in that same hour. You'll start to see the subtle ebb and flow of life under the ice. The difference between a dead hole and an inactive hole is one of the most important distinctions in fishing. A dead hole is a location that is fundamentally wrong, a barren mud flat with no structure, no food, and no reason for a fish to be there. An inactive hole is a good location where the fish are present but not currently biting. The 15-minute rule makes you treat inactive holes like dead holes. This is a huge mistake. If you're on good structure, you should assume the fish are there or will be there eventually. Your job isn't to find the fish, it's to wait for them to turn on. Another thing to consider is your own noise on the ice. Every time you shuffle your feet, drop your scoop, or adjust your bucket, you're sending vibrations down to the fish. When you're constantly packing up, walking and drilling, you're making a continuous racket. When you sit still for an extended period, you become part of the background noise. You become less of a threat. This silence can be your greatest tool. The quiet angler who waits patiently often outfishes the noisy, mobile angler because he lets the underwater world forget he is there. That's when the magic happens. Your jigging cadence itself can be a long-term attractant. Imagine you're using a rattle spoon. For the first 15 minutes, the sound from that spoon is traveling, calling fish in from a distance. A big lake trout might hear or feel that vibration from 100 feet away. It's not going to teleport to your hole. It's going to swim over, and that takes time. If you stop making that sound and move away after 15 minutes, that fish who was on his way to you will lose the signal and turn back. You were calling him to dinner, but you left the restaurant before he could arrive. This strategy also makes you a more thoughtful angler. Instead of just randomly drilling holes, you're forced to be more selective. You start to think more deeply about why you are choosing a particular spot. Is there a weed edge, a drop-off, a submerged point? When you know you have to commit to a spot for a longer period, you make better decisions from the start. It shifts your mindset from one of frantic searching to one of strategic hunting. You're not just looking for fish, you're ambushing them on their own turf and on their own schedule. So let's tie this all together. The old 15-minute rule is a relic from a time when we understood less about fish behavior. It's a strategy for catching small, aggressive fish. But if you are hunting for trophies, you need to throw that rule out the window. You need to account for the settling period, the cruising patterns of predators, the time it takes to attract bait, and the cautious nature of big, old fish. Your new mantra should be this: choose your spot wisely and then give it a real chance to produce. The 16th minute is when your patience starts to pay off. It's the moment the chaos you created fades and the natural order of the lake takes over. And that's where the giants live. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's that your clock and the fish's clock are running at two completely different speeds. The 15-minute rule is designed for our impatient human brains, not for the patient, cautious world of a trophy fish. The most mind-blowing part of this whole concept is that the very act of leaving is what often prevents us from succeeding. You're not leaving a dead hole. You're leaving a hole that you were priming for success, and you're letting someone else walk into a perfect situation. This one shift in mindset, from frantic searching to patient hunting, can fundamentally change your results on the ice. You'll drill fewer holes, you'll be less tired, and you'll put yourself in the path of the biggest, smartest fish in the system. They are not looking for a frantic, noisy meal. They are looking for an opportunity, and you create that opportunity with quiet, persistent patience. Thank you for watching. If this gave you a new perspective, hit that like button and subscribe for more content that goes against the grain. Now, I have to ask you, after hearing all this, are you willing to try waiting for a full hour on your best spot during your next trip? Let me know your honest answer in the comments below.